The battlefield was silent now. Only smoke moved across the broken ground. The war between humans and Thraxians had ended its bloodiest day. Bodies of soldiers, human and alien, lay across the black soil. Fire burned in the distance, painting the sky in orange and ash. Among the ruins, one creature still breathed. Commander Varkesh, the proud Thraxian warrior, lay trapped under metal debris. His armor cracked, his legs twisted and lifeless. He tried to move, but pain shot through his spine like lightning. He looked around. No one answered his calls. His own soldiers had pulled back. They thought he was dead. He wasn't. For the first time in his life, the great warrior felt fear. Not of death, but of being forgotten, of being left to rot under a sky filled with smoke. He tried to drag himself forward, inches only, before his arms gave up. The sound of engines faded in the distance. His army was gone. Varkesh's heart sank. So this was how heroes were treated. Silence again. Then, footsteps. Human footsteps. A small rescue squad moved through the ruins, checking for survivors. Their suits hummed softly, scanning life signs through the dust. Sergeant Alex Carter led the group, a tired man with sharp eyes and a calm voice. He had seen too much war, too many deaths, too many bodies that looked the same in the dirt, no matter what color the skin was. "Move fast," he told his team. "We don't want to stay here when the Thrax drones come back." A faint sound made him stop. It wasn't human. It was a weak, deep growl, almost a whisper. He followed the noise, pushed aside the debris, and froze. There it was. An alien, a Thraxian. Still breathing. His team raised their weapons. "Sir, that's the enemy," one said. "Leave it." HQ said no alien recoveries. Carter looked closer. The alien's chest rose slowly. His face was covered in ash and blood, but his eyes were still alive. He remembered something his father once told him before the war. A real soldier doesn't kill what can't fight back. He knelt beside the alien. Varkesh stared back at him, his breathing rough. "You, human," he hissed weakly. "Finish it." Carter shook his head. "No, I'm not here to finish anyone." He opened his comms. "Control, I found a survivor." The voice from command replied, "If it's Thraxian, leave it, that's an order." Carter's jaw tightened. He looked again at the alien warrior, paralyzed, abandoned, barely alive. He could almost see the same pain he'd seen in human eyes 100 times before, orders or not. He couldn't just walk away. He turned off his comms. "Sorry, Control. Signal's dead," he said quietly. His team stared at him. "Sir, are you serious? That thing could kill us." Carter replied softly, "Not today. He's coming with us." They refused to help. So Carter made his choice alone. He pushed away the metal, lifted the alien's heavy body over his shoulder, and started walking through the smoke. Step after step, each one slower than the last. The alien groaned in pain, whispering something in his native tongue, a word that sounded like "why." Carter didn't answer. He didn't know the answer himself. He only knew that leaving someone to die felt wrong, even if that someone was supposed to be his enemy. The other soldiers followed behind, silent, confused, afraid. They'd never seen a human carry a Thraxian before, and in the middle of a war zone, it felt like madness. Carter reached an old bunker half buried in the dirt. The door creaked open. Inside, it was dark and cold. He laid the alien gently on the floor. Varkesh opened his eyes again, glaring at him. "Why? Help me?" he asked, his voice broken. Carter looked down, wiping dust from his gloves. "Because no one else will," he said quietly. The alien's breathing slowed. He seemed to study the human's face, as if trying to understand what kind of creature would save an enemy. Outside, thunder rumbled. Or maybe it was explosions far away. The war hadn't stopped. The world was still burning. But for one brief moment, inside that bunker, there was peace. Carter leaned against the wall, exhausted. He looked at the alien again. "If you can hear me," he said softly, "don't die on me now. You've come this far." Varkesh blinked slowly. "You're a fool." Carter half smiled. "Yeah, that's what they tell me." He checked the scanner on his wrist. Drones were nearby. If they found him sheltering an alien, it wouldn't just be a court-martial. It'd be execution. He turned off the scanner. "Guess we both need to stay quiet," he whispered. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Just two soldiers, enemies by command, bound by something deeper. Survival. Outside, the storm grew louder. Lightning lit the bunker through the cracks in the wall. Carter stared at the sky and exhaled. Maybe the universe wasn't about sides anymore. Maybe it was about choices. And he had already made his soft tone. "If you're new here," Carter's voice echoed gently, "don't forget to subscribe to the channel. More stories like this are waiting. Stories about courage, hope, and the humans who never walk away." As the night fell and the sound of drones came closer, Carter reached for his weapon and whispered, "Rest, alien. I'll keep watch." And in the darkness, the human soldier stood guard. Over the paralyzed warrior, no one else would save. The war outside roared on, but inside that bunker, something else had just begun. The night was long. Cold wind howled through the cracks in the bunker walls. Dust drifted from the ceiling each time something exploded far away. Sergeant Alex Carter sat in silence, his rifle resting on his knees. The alien, Varkesh, slept uneasily on a makeshift bed of torn cloth and metal scraps. His breathing was shale, low, his body weak, but he was alive. Carter watched him, unsure if he'd done the right thing. Saving the enemy went against every rule, every order. But somehow, it didn't feel wrong. It felt human. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to rest. That's when the sound came, a faint hum. Electronic, mechanical. Not thunder, not wind. He stood quickly, looking through a crack in the bunker wall. In the distance, red lights flickered through the smoke. Drones. Human patrol drones. They were scanning the battlefield for survivors, or deserters. If they found him with a Thraxian life form inside, it would be over. He moved to the alien, shaking his shoulder. "Wake up," he whispered harshly. "You need to stay quiet." Varkesh groaned, opening his eyes slowly. What's happening?" "Search drones," Carter said. "If they find us, we're both dead." The alien tried to move, but pain ripped through his body. He bit back a scream. Carter quickly covered his mouth. "Don't. Not a sound." The hum grew louder. The light from the drones moved closer, sweeping across the ruins like hunting eyes. Carter held his breath. The light passed over the bunker's doorway for a moment, then moved on. He exhaled softly. "We're clear," he whispered. Varkesh stared at him. "Why protect me? Why risk your own kind's wrath?" Carter sat beside him, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Because you're a soldier, same as me, and soldiers don't leave their own behind, even if they're from another world." The alien studied him for a long moment. "Your people hate mine," he said. "You could be branded a traitor." Carter shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time I've been called worse." He checked the small medkit beside him. Supplies were running low. He injected the alien with a stim serum to ease his pain. Varkesh grunted, his claws gripping the floor. "This medicine, it's human-made." "Yeah!" Carter replied. "And it's saving your life." Hours passed. The night outside grew quieter. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. Carter leaned back against the wall and whispered to himself, "If command finds me, I'll say I was following instinct, not orders." Varkesh turned his head slightly. "Instinct?" "Yeah," Carter said softly. "Something your kind might not understand." The alien gave a low chuckle, deep and tired. You'd be surprised what my kind understands. They sat in silence for a while, two enemies sharing the same air, the same fear, the same exhaustion. Then, a sharp sound broke the stillness. Metal scraping against stone. Carter froze. He raised his weapon and whispered, "Stay down." Varkesh's eyes widened. "Is it your kind?" Carter shook his head. "No. That sounds too heavy. Thraxian patrol, maybe." He crept to the doorway, peeking through the narrow crack. Shapes moved in the smoke, tall, armored, and glowing faint blue. Thraxian scouts. They were searching the area. Varkesh's pulse quickened. "They'll kill us both if they find me with you," he hissed. "Then let's make sure they don't," Carter replied quietly. He crouched down beside the alien. "Can you still use your weapon hand?" Varkesh flexed his right arm slowly. "Barely. That's enough," Carter said. He handed him a human sidearm. The alien looked at it. A strange human gun, small and crude compared to Thraxian tech. He nodded. "Point and pull. Point and pull," Carter said. "Try not to hit me." They waited. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. A Thraxian voice echoed faintly through the ruins. "Commander Varkesh's signal ended here. Recover what remains." Varkesh's eyes widened. His own people, searching not to rescue him, but to erase him. Carter noticed the change in his expression. "They're not here to save you, are they?" Varkesh shook his head slowly. "No, they came to confirm my death." The sound of boots scraped against the bunker door. Carter aimed his rifle. Varkesh steadied his trembling hand with the pistol. The door creaked open. A beam of blue light swept inside. Carter fired first. The blast echoed through the bunker. One Thraxian scout fell instantly. Another shouted in alien tongue and threw a plasma charge. Carter dived, dragging Varkesh down as the explosion shook the ground. Dust filled the air. Everything was chaos, smoke, light, heat. Carter coughed, trying to see. Varkesh was gone from his sight. He turned and saw the alien dragging himself forward, one arm pulling his heavy body across the floor. He fired the pistol once, a clean shot. A second Thraxian fell. The silence returned as quickly as it had broken. Carter helped Varkesh back against the wall. "You saved me," he said, catching his breath. Varkesh's voice was weak. "Now we're even." Carter smiled faintly. "You sure you're the enemy?" Varkesh closed his eyes. "Maybe not tonight." The human looked around the wrecked bunker. The walls were cracked, the air thick with dust. They couldn't stay here much longer. "We need to move before sunrise," Carter said. Varkesh looked at his legs. Motionless, useless. "Move? How?" Carter glanced at him with a small smirk. "You let me worry about that." He stepped outside, scanning the horizon. The battlefield stretched endlessly. Fire still burned in patches, and the sky glowed faint red from the storm above. He whispered, "We'll make it out. Somehow." Behind him, Varkesh stared at the floor, lost in thought. The human had saved him. Twice now. Why? What made him different from the others who had left him to die? Outside, the wind grew stronger, carrying the sound of distant engines. Carter returned quickly. "They're coming back," he said. "Both sides. This whole sector's about to be wiped clean." Varkesh's voice was rough. "Then we run." Carter nodded. "Yeah, we run." He packed the remaining supplies, slung his rifle, and leaned down. "Hold on, big guy," he muttered. Then he lifted the alien again, heavier than before, but he didn't stop. As they stepped into the burning horizon, Carter whispered under his breath, "Guess you and I are both running from something, huh?" The alien didn't answer. He only stared at the red sky and said softly, "Perhaps. We are both running towards something." The wind howled. The ground trembled. And somewhere behind them, another explosion lit up the sky. But the human didn't look back. He kept walking, carrying the enemy the world had left to die, toward whatever awaited them beyond the smoke. The morning light crept through the ashes of war. A dull red sun rose over broken steel and shattered ships. Carter walked slowly across the wasteland, each step heavy, each breath full of smoke. On his back, the alien warrior hung limp, silent but alive. The air smelled of burning fuel and metal. In the distance, human aircrafts circled, search drones scanning every inch of land. They were sweeping for survivors, or deserters. Carter kept to the shadows, moving between wrecked vehicles, broken turrets, and fallen walls. Varkesh stirred weakly. "You should have left me," he whispered. Carter grinned through his exhaustion. "You already said that. Then, why didn't you listen?" "Because I don't like repeating mistakes," Carter said. He lowered the alien beside a half-collapsed transport vehicle. Varkesh tried to sit up but groaned, the pain stabbing deep through his back. Carter knelt, opening his medkit again. "Hold still." He injected another dose of serum, the last one. The alien exhaled slowly. "You waste your medicine on me." Carter smirked. "Yeah, I'm generous like that." They sat there quietly for a moment. The only sound was the wind sweeping through the wreckage. Then, far away, the sky flickered. A flash of blue plasma fire. Moments later, the echo of an explosion rolled across the desert. Carter frowned. "They're cleaning up the field. No witnesses, no evidence." Varkesh looked up at him. "You mean they destroy even the wounded?" "Everyone," Carter said. "They call it sterilizing the zone." The alien stared at the horizon. "Your species fights without mercy." Carter glanced at him. "Yours doesn't exactly send flowers." Varkesh gave a low, dry laugh. "Perhaps we deserve each other." They rested there for a while. Carter checked his wrist scanner. No signals nearby. It was quiet. Too quiet. He didn't like it. He stood up, scanning the wreckage. Something caught his eye. A faint blinking light inside a nearby tank hull. He walked closer, a distress beacon. He frowned. The beacon wasn't Thraxian. It was human. He tapped the control panel. The signal was still transmitting. Someone had activated it hours ago. A survivor? Or a trap? Carter looked back at Varkesh. "Stay here." The alien nodded weakly. "Go, human. If you do not return, I will assume the worst." Carter smiled faintly. "You assume too much." He moved toward the beacon, keeping low, his weapon raised. The air shimmered with heat. The ground cracked beneath his boots. When he reached the tank, he saw it. A human soldier, pinned under metal, barely alive. Carter dropped beside him. "Hey, stay with me." The soldier's eyes fluttered open. "Sergeant Carter?" "Yeah, easy, you're gonna be fine." The soldier's breathing was shallow. "They said, no survivors. Everyone's compromised." Carter's heart tightened. "Who said that?" The soldier coughed, blood running down his chin. "Command. Said to destroy all signatures. Thraxian tech. Even humans exposed to it." Carter froze. "Exposed?" The soldier nodded weakly. "If they find out you've been near alien tissue, they'll burn the site." His voice trailed off into silence. Carter clenched his jaw. He stood slowly, watching the beacon blink beside the dead man. If the signal reached HQ, a cleansing squad would arrive. Bombs, fire, and silence. He had to move, fast. He ran back to the transport, where Varkesh waited. The alien looked up, sensing the tension in Carter's face. "What did you find?" "Trouble," Carter said. "We can't stay here. They're coming." Varkesh frowned. "Your own kind hunts you now?" "Seems that way." Carter grabbed his gear, slinging it over his shoulder. He looked at the alien's legs, still motionless. "All right, partner. We're doing this the hard way again." He lifted Varkesh onto his back once more. The alien didn't fight it this time. He simply said, "Your loyalty, it will destroy you." Carter replied, "Yeah, but at least I'll go down doing something right." They moved through the ruins. The air grew thicker, the sound of engines echoed overhead. Carter ducked under debris, staying out of sight. Behind him, the alien's voice was low, almost thoughtful. In my world, mercy is weakness, but now, I am not sure. Carter said, "That's the thing about mercy. You don't need to understand it to feel it." A shadow passed across the ground. Carter looked up. A drone, large, armed, scanning. He froze, pressing his back against a wall. The drone hovered, light sweeping across the wreckage. For a moment, the red beam stopped, directly on them. Carter's heart pounded. He aimed his rifle slowly. Then, a sharp whistle cut through the air. A missile streaked across the sky and hit the drone, exploding in a burst of fire. Carter flinched, shielding the alien. When the smoke cleared, he saw a group of human soldiers approaching. A rogue patrol. "Drop the weapon," one shouted. Carter hesitated. "Wait, I'm human." The soldier's helmet visor gleamed. "Then prove it. Step away from the creature." Varkesh growled weakly. "They will kill us both." Carter raised his hands. "Listen. He's not the enemy anymore. He's injured." The soldier fired a warning shot. "Orders are orders, Sergeant. Contaminated assets are to be terminated." Carter's eyes widened. "Contaminated? You mean me too?" "Step back!" the soldier barked. "Yo, we've been in contact with alien biology. We can't risk infection." The words hit like a bullet. So that was it. Command wasn't coming to rescue him. They were coming to erase him. Carter slowly lowered his hands. "I can't do that." The soldiers raised their rifles. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Carter acted. He threw a smoke grenade, grabbed Varkesh, and dove behind the wreckage. Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through the air, sparks flying. Carter fired back blindly, dragging the alien toward a trench. "Go!" he shouted. Varkesh gritted his teeth, forcing his arms to move. He crawled through the dirt, pulling himself inch by inch. Carter covered him, reloading fast. A round grazed his shoulder. Pain burned hot, but he kept firing. Smoke filled the air. The shouts grew distant. Finally, silence. Carter looked back. The soldiers were gone. But he knew they'd be back, with reinforcements. He slumped beside the alien, bleeding, gasping. Varkesh turned his head. "You are wounded." "Just a scratch," Carter said, though his voice trembled. "You risk everything. For me," the alien whispered. Carter smiled weakly. "Guess I'm bad at following rules." Varkesh stared at him for a long moment. "Perhaps. Humans are not as weak as we believed." Carter laughed quietly. "We're not strong either. We're just too stubborn to quit." The alien closed his eyes. Outside, the wind howled again, carrying the promise of more danger. Carter looked at the horizon. Fire still burned there. He knew this wasn't over. Not yet. He reached for his rifle and whispered, "Time to keep moving, before the next storm finds us." And so, the human and the alien vanished into the wasteland once more. Two fugitives, hunted by both sides, bound by one impossible act of mercy. The war wasn't done with them, but neither were they done with each other. The desert stretched endless and empty, a gray horizon swallowing the sky. Ash rained from clouds that never stopped burning. Carter stumbled across the cracked ground, each breath sharp, each step slower than the last. Varkesh hung across his shoulders, heavier than ever, his armor plates scorched and broken. The human soldier's uniform was torn, blood dried on his sleeve. He didn't look like a hero anymore, just another man trying to survive one more hour. They had been walking since dawn. No food, no water, no rest. Only the sound of wind and the low hum of machines far away. Finally, Carter saw it, a half-buried structure jutting from the sand. An old outpost, forgotten by both armies. He headed toward it. Inside, the air was cold and stale. Metal walls rusted from years of acid storms. But it was shelter, and for now, that was enough. He laid Varkesh down carefully against the wall. The alien's breathing was shallow. Carter knelt beside him. "Still alive, big guy?" Varkesh opened one eye. "Unfortunately, yes." Carter smiled faintly. "Good. I'm not carrying a corpse this far. The alien's mandibles flexed, something like a smile. You are strange, human. I get that a lot. Carter pulled off his helmet and sat down beside him. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It felt familiar. He stared at the cracked floor. You ever think this war is pointless? Varkesh blinked slowly. All wars begin with reason, then devour it. Carter sighed. Guess that makes us both meals. Outside, thunder rolled. Not weather, but artillery. The sound grew louder. Carter looked toward the doorway. They're closer than I thought. He stood, scanning with his wrist device. Red signals blinked on the display, multiple units approaching. Not human. Thraxian. He cursed under his breath. Your people are sweeping this sector. Maybe they tracked your armor beacon. Varkesh tried to rise. If they find us, they will kill you first. Carter loaded his rifle. Then I'd better make it expensive for them. The alien frowned. You cannot fight them all. Never said I could. Karwas. Ter looked down at him. But I can buy us time. He stepped outside into the storm of dust. The horizon flashed with blue light. Scout drones. Carter aimed carefully and fired. The nearest drone burst into flame, spiraling into the sand. Another appeared, firing plasma bolts. Carter ducked, rolled, returned fire. The sky lit up with streaks of red and blue. Inside, Varkesh forced his body to move. He dragged himself to a wall panel and tore it open. Exposed wires sparked. He found an old generator and slammed his fist against the switch. Power flickered through the outpost. Old turrets whirred to life. Outside, Carter heard the grinding of metal and smiled. Nice work, partner. The turrets opened fire, shredding the next wave of drones. But the victory lasted seconds. In the distance, a deeper sound echoed. Engines. Varkesh's eyes widened. Heavy transport. Thraxian command unit. Carter ducked back into the bunker. How many? Too many, the alien said softly. You must leave me. Carter looked at him, silent for a long moment, then shook his head. Not happening. Varkesh's claws dug into the floor. You will die for nothing. Carter smiled thinly. Maybe, but not alone. Outside, the storm darkened. A massive shadow descended. A Thraxian dropship landing hard on the sand. The air vibrated with the sound of its engines. Carter reloaded. Looks like we've got company. He crouched near the doorway. The dropship's ramp lowered. Armored Thraxians marched out in perfect formation. Their commander's voice boomed through the speakers. Commander Varkesh, by order of the High Legion, surrender the human and face judgment for treason. Varkesh's eyes darkened. They know. Carter glanced at him. Treason? The alien nodded slowly. To them, survival with an enemy is betrayal. Carter took a deep breath. Then I guess we're both traitors. The Mander shouted again. Come out, human. We have no interest in your death. Surrender the Thraxian and you will live. Carter smirked bitterly. Yeah, sure. He looked at Varkesh. You trust me? Varkesh gave a slow nod. Do I have a choice? No, Carter said, loading the last magazine. He reached under the floor grate and pulled a power cable free. What are you doing? The alien asked. Improvising. He wired the generator's energy feed to the outpost's defense grid. Old tech, unstable, unpredictable. Exactly what he needed. The Thraxians moved closer. Their footsteps echoed through the sand like thunder. Carter watched the door's motion sensor. 5 meters, 4, 3. He whispered, now. He hit the switch. The floor burst with blue light. An energy wave rippled outward, knocking the first soldiers off their feet. Carter opened fire, every shot precise. The air filled with smoke, sparks, and screams. Varkesh tried to help, firing the damaged turret manually. The old gun shook, belched smoke, but still spat bullets. One Thraxian got through, towering, armored, blade raised. Carter turned too late. The blade struck, but Varkesh moved faster. He lunged forward, dragging himself across the floor, grabbing the soldier's leg, and slamming him into the wall with a roar that shook the bunker. Carter fired once more. The soldier dropped. Silence again, except for heavy breathing. Carter leaned against the wall, sweat dripping from his brow. Varkesh's claws trembled. "Why do you fight for me, human?" Carter met his gaze. "Because someone should have fought for you when they left you behind." The alien looked down, his eyes glowing faintly. "Your species confuses me." "Good," Carter said. "Means we're doing something right." Outside, the dropship engines roared again. Carter peeked out. The commander stood at the ramp, furious, signaling the retreat. He shouted something in Thraxian. A promise. Varkesh translated quietly. "He said this isn't over. He'll burn every world you love." Carter shrugged. "He can get in. Line." The dropship lifted off, vanishing into the storm. Inside the bunker, Carter finally let himself collapse beside the alien. His body ached. His ears rang. He stared at the ceiling. "Still think I should have left you?" Varkesh turned his head. "No. Now. I think perhaps you saved me for a reason." Carter smiled faintly. "Don't get philosophical on me. I'm still bleeding." The alien looked at the human's shoulder. The wound had reopened, blood soaking his armor. He reached out, placing a clawed hand over it. A faint light pulsed from his palm. Alien bioenergy. Carter flinched. "What are you doing?" Varkesh closed his eyes. "Returning the favor." Warmth spread through Carter's skin. The pain faded. The bleeding stopped. He stared, amazed. "You could do that all along?" "Not before," Varkesh whispered. "Only now, because I wanted to." Carter laughed softly. "Guess that makes us both breaking rules today." Outside, the last echo of engines faded. Only silence remained, but they both knew it wouldn't last. Carter leaned his head back, whispering, "They'll come again." Varkesh nodded. "Then we must not be here when they do." "Where then?" The alien looked at the horizon. "There is a human base north of here, a place neither side dares to fight." Carter frowned. "You mean the neutral zone?" "Yes. If we reach it, maybe the war will not reach us." Carter stood slowly, reloading his weapon. "Then that's where we go." Varkesh looked up at him. "Together?" Carter gave a small grin. "Together." He pulled the alien's arm over his shoulder again. The two of them stepped out into the storm, bruised, battered, but unbroken. The wind howled behind them, carrying the smell of burnt metal and the ghosts of the fallen. Ahead, only uncertainty. But for the first time since the war began, Carter felt something strange in his chest. Hope. And as they disappeared into the dust, the sky rumbled once more, reminding them that peace was still far away, and the real fight had only just begun. The sun fell behind the dunes like a dying ember, and the world turned red. Carter's boots sank into soft dust with every step. The alien beside him leaned heavily on a steel staff he'd taken from the ruins. They had walked for 2 days, no food, no signal, no sleep, only the promise of the neutral zone. A place both armies feared. A place said to belong to no one. "Are you sure it's real?" Carter asked. Varkesh's voice was rough. "I heard stories. Traders spoke of a valley where neither human nor Thraxian dare to fight." "Stories," Carter muttered. "Always reliable." The alien's mandibles twitched. Maybe amusement. "Do you have a better direction, human?" Carter gave a tired grin. "Forward's good enough." They climbed a ridge of shattered stone. Below stretched a canyon glowing faintly blue. Strange lights pulsed under the sand. Energy veins, alive like rivers of lightning. "That," Varkesh whispered, "is not human." "Then we're in the right place," Carter said. They descended carefully. At the canyon's heart, they found metallic pillars rising from the ground, humming with quiet power. Symbols neither of them recognized glowed across the surfaces. Ancient, alien, older than both their races. Carter stepped closer, brushing away sand. This place. Who built it? Varkesh shook his head slowly. Legends say a race that vanished before time. Carter ran a hand along one of the pillars. It was warm, alive. Then he heard it. A soft click. A shimmer of light rippled across the canyon floor. The pillars brightened, responding to his touch. Varkesh stiffened. What did you do? A blinding flash cut him off. When his vision cleared, the air around them had changed. The wind was gone, the smell of dust replaced by something clean, electric. A voice spoke, calm and mechanical, echoing from everywhere. Unauthorized entry detected. Identify. Carter raised at his rifle instinctively. Who's there? Identify, the voice repeated. Varkesh struggled to stand tall. We mean no harm. We seek refuge. The ground trembled. Out of the light, figures emerged. Holograms, half solid, half smoke. Tall shapes with glowing eyes and armor made of pure energy. Carter stepped back. That doesn't look like refuge. Varkesh whispered. Guardians, the last protectors of this place. One of the figures spoke, its tone without emotion. This zone is forbidden. Leave or be neutralized. Carter spread his hands. Listen, we're just passing through. We're not here to fight. The figure turned its gaze toward Varkesh. Thraxian, wounded, contaminated with human genome trace. Carter frowned. What the hell does that mean? Another voice answered, colder. Hybridization risk. Termination required. Varkesh's claws flexed. Try. The Guardians raised their weapons, light spears humming with deadly charge. Carter fired first. The bullets passed straight through one hologram, harmless. Not good, he muttered. Varkesh thrust his staff into the ground, channeling what energy he still had. A shockwave rippled outward, distorting the Guardians' forms for a heartbeat. Run! He shouted. Carter grabbed the alien's arm, half dragging him toward the far wall of the canyon. Energy bolts struck around them, carving glass from sand. One hit the ground near Carter's foot. Heat seared his leg. He stumbled, gritting his teeth, but kept moving. Behind them, the Guardians reformed, advancing slowly, unstoppable. They reached a narrow passage in the rock. Carter shoved Varkesh through first. Inside, the tunnel twisted down into darkness. He turned and fired one last burst before diving in himself. The passage sealed behind them, stone shifting like a living thing. Then, silence. Carter gasped for air. His hands trembled. What were those things? Varkesh answered. Ancients, automated guardians, built to protect the zone from intruders. Well, they're doing a damn good job. They followed the tunnel deeper until it opened into a cavern filled with glowing crystals. Light danced on the walls like stars. At the center lay a structure, a chamber, humming with faint power. Carter stepped closer, scanning it. Looks like a core, some kind of reactor. Varkesh approached slowly, awe in his eyes. This energy, it's neither human nor Thraxian. It's pure creation. Carter glanced at him. Think it can hide us from scanners? Perhaps. But it may do more than that. He touched the crystal surface. A pulse of light shot up his arm, connecting to the marks on his armor. Carter stepped back. Whoa. What did you just do? Varkesh stared at his own hands. Veins of blue light glowed under his skin. I don't know. The air around them shimmered again. The same mechanical voice returned, closer this time, as if inside their minds. Subject connection established. Thraxian neural code incomplete. Human biosignature detected. Compatibility equals 93%. Carter froze. Compatibility. For what? The voice replied. For activation. The crystal chamber brightened, filling the room with unbearable light. Carter shielded his eyes. Varkesh groaned, his body trembling. Then everything went silent. The light dimmed, and both of them stood in a circle of blue fire, unharmed, but changed. Varkesh's eyes glowed brighter now, pure silver. Carter looked at his wrist. His scanner was fried, yet a strange symbol pulsed beneath his skin, the same mark from the pillars. Varkesh spoke first. "The zone has chosen." "Chosen what?" Carter demanded. "Us." Before Carter could answer, an explosion echoed far above. The canyon walls shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Carter cursed. "They found us." Varkesh's gaze sharpened. "Then they will also find what we have awakened." "What do you mean?" A sudden surge of light tore through the crystals. Energy arced upward, punching through the rock, creating a beam that split the sky. From miles away, every radar, human and Thraxian, would see it. Carter's stomach dropped. "We just told everyone where we are." Varkesh nodded grimly. "Then we prepare." Carter checked his weapon. "For what?" The alien looked toward the glowing chamber. "For the day when both our worlds come here to claim what neither understands." The ground trembled again, deeper this time. A new sound filled the air, metal grinding, stone breaking, something massive awakening beneath their feet. Carter aimed into the darkness. "Tell me that's not what I think it is." Varkesh's voice was low. "Guardian, no, something older." The light intensified until the cavern shook violently. Carter shouted, "Move!" They ran through the tunnel as the floor cracked behind them. The roar grew louder, mechanical and alive at the same time. They burst out of the canyon just as the ground collapsed inward. A shockwave of energy threw them into the sand. When Carter lifted his head, he saw it, rising from the dust, a colossal figure made of crystal and metal, towering like a god. It turned its glowing eyes toward them. For a moment, it simply watched. Then its voice thundered across the desert. "Designation. Reclaimer protocol. Activated." Carter whispered, "What have we done?" Varkesh stared at the Titan, awe and fear mixing in his voice. "Human. I think we just woke up the reason this place was forbidden." The sky burned blue. The machine took its first step, each footfall shaking the world. And far above, in orbit, human and Thraxian satellites locked onto the same signal, turning toward the desert. Toward them. The countdown to war had just restarted. The sky was no longer sky. It was fire. Blue lightning split the clouds, stretching across the heavens like living veins. The colossal being, half crystal, half machine, rose from the earth, each movement echoing like thunder. Carter and Varkesh crouched behind a dune, the shock waves rolling beneath their boots. Sand fell in sheets from the ridges. The air smelled of metal and ozone. "What is that thing?" Carter whispered. Varkesh's voice trembled, low and reverent. "The Reclaimer. The legend spoke of it. A guardian that would wake when both races threatened the balance." Carter gave a grim laugh. "Great. So now we've got balance issues on top of war." The Titan turned its head. A beam of light swept across the desert, searching. Carter ducked lower. "It's scanning." Varkesh stared at the glow pulsing under his own skin. "And it's searching for us." He looked at Carter. "The zone marked us. We are part of its code now." Carter cursed softly. "Of course we are." The ground vibrated again. Distant engines this time. Carter lifted his binoculars. Through the haze he saw human carriers approaching from the west, their banners burned black by dust. From the east, Thraxian transports shimmered like silver ghosts in the sun. 2 armies, both heading straight for them. "Well," Carter muttered, "at least the party's getting crowded." Varkesh's mandibles twitched. "They will not fight each other here. They will fight for that." He pointed at the Reclaimer. Carter watched as the Titan extended one massive arm toward the horizon. The earth cracked open where it pointed, revealing glowing tunnels beneath the sand. Wind rushed downward, pulling everything loose into the void. Varkesh's voice grew quieter. "It's opening the vault." "The what?" "The heart of the zone," the alien said. "The place that feeds all energy to the machines of this world." Carter's stomach turned cold. If they get that tech, neither of our worlds will survive it. The wind howled. Above them, the Titan's chest flared brighter. It was drawing power, fast. Carter checked his weapon. Then we stop it. Varkesh looked at him in disbelief. You would attack that? You got a better idea? The alien hesitated, then nodded slowly. Maybe. He pointed toward the canyons. The tunnels lead to its core. If we can reach it before the armies do, we may shut it down. Carter stared at the towering figure again. And if we can't? Then we die doing something no one else would dare. Carter smirked. You've been spending too much time around humans. They began their descent into the canyon once more. Every step closer made the air heavier, buzzing with energy. Sparks jumped from rock to rock like fireflies. Halfway down, the sand exploded near them. A human drop pod slammed into the ground. Carter ducked behind a ridge, pulling Varkesh down. 5 soldiers climbed from the wreck, armor gleaming. The unit insignia on their shoulders stopped him cold. Special Recovery Division. The one sent to erase evidence. To erase him. The lead soldier scanned the horizon, visor flickering. Command, we have eyes on target energy signature. Proceeding with reclamation. Carter's pulse hammered. Varkesh whispered, They are here for you. Carter nodded. And they're not leaving with me alive. He aimed his rifle, exhaled slowly, and fired. The first shot hit the leader's shoulder plate. Sparks flew. The soldiers scattered, returning fire instantly. Bullets tore the sand apart. Carter shouted, Move! Varkesh crawled forward, dragging himself behind a stone pillar. The firefight was brutal and fast. Carter took down 2 before a grenade landed near his feet. He grabbed Varkesh and rolled behind cover as the blast ripped the ridge apart. Your people are persistent, Varkesh growled. Yeah, Carter said, coughing. They really hate being wrong. They kept moving through the canyon, chased by gunfire and dust. Suddenly, an alien ship swooped overhead, sleek, curved, glowing violet. Thraxian soldiers dropped from the sky, weapons ready. They fired not at Carter, but at the human squad. For the first time in history, the 2 enemies shot at each other over something they didn't even understand. The ground quaked again. A deafening roar silenced them all. Every head turned upward. The reclaimer raised both arms, gathering energy between them. A sphere of light formed, growing brighter each second. Varkesh whispered, It's charging for release. Carter squinted. Release what? The alien's voice dropped. Judgment. A beam erupted from the Titan's chest, striking the desert miles away. The explosion that followed swallowed sound itself. Sand turned to glass, air into fire. Even the soldiers froze in terror. Carter grabbed Varkesh's shoulder. We need to reach that core now. They ran through the chaos, dodging debris, ignoring screams, weaving between broken drones and burning metal. The canyon narrowed, leading into a tunnel that glowed faintly blue. Inside, everything hummed like a heartbeat. The walls pulsed with light. Energy veins crawled under the surface. Carter stopped. How do we shut this thing down? Varkesh placed a hand on one of the glowing conduits. I can feel its mind. It speaks in code, not words. Carter frowned. Then translate fast. The alien closed his eyes, concentrating. The blue light from his veins brightened, flowing into the wall. Symbols appeared, ancient, shifting. Carter's wrist began to glow too, the same mark pulsing under his skin since the zone had chosen him. Varkesh gasped. It responds to you too. What does that mean? Together, we may command it. The cavern shook as another blast hit somewhere above. Rocks rained down. Carter pressed his hand to the wall beside Varkesh's. The energy between them merged, 2 colors twisting into one. A voice boomed inside their minds. 2 opposed, 2 aligned, directive conflict, human mercy, Thraxian order, resolution its integration required. Carter shouted, Just stop the weapon. The voice replied, Integration incomplete, manual override possible at core. Varkesh opened his eyes. It will only obey if we link directly to its heart. And how far is Tan Hat? The alien glanced down the tunnel, a mile of blinding light and shaking ground. Far enough to kill us both. Carter smiled grimly. Story of my life. They ran. The deeper they went, the louder the reclaimer's pulse became. It wasn't just a sound. It was like standing inside a heartbeat the size of a mountain. Electric arcs jumped across the path. The air shimmered like heat. Halfway through, Varkesh stumbled. Carter caught him, pulling him along. Come on, don't quit now. The alien's breathing was ragged. My body. It was not made for this energy. Neither was mine, Carter said, but we're still here. Finally, they reached the chamber. At its center floated a massive crystal sphere, bright as the sun, humming with life. Carter stared, awed. That's the core. Varkesh nodded. If we connect to it, we may command it to sleep. And if we don't, it will finish its judgment. Carter took a deep breath. Then let's wake it the right way. They stepped forward together, reaching out. The moment their hands touched the surface, light engulfed them. A surge of memory, emotion, and energy flooded their minds. Images of both worlds, both species, all their wars and pain and hope. Carter gasped. It's showing me everything. Varkesh's voice echoed beside him. It wants a choice. The voice of the reclaimer thundered again. Choose, erase both, or merge both. Carter's heart stopped. Erase or merge? Varkesh whispered. Merge means no war, one existence, but we may not survive the process. Carter looked at him. And erase? Extinction. For everyone. The ground shook harder. The core's light flared white. Carter clenched his fists. We started this together. We finish it together. Varkesh met his gaze. Then we choose life. They pressed their hands into the core. A shockwave burst outward, racing through the tunnels, through the desert, through the skies. The reclaimer roared, not in rage, but in release. For a moment, the world stopped moving. The fire faded. The armies halted mid-battle, blinded by a wave of light that swept across them all. Then silence. The machine froze, its eyes dimming, its body turning to still crystal. Carter collapsed beside Varkesh, breathing hard. Did it work? The alien smiled faintly. For now, yes. Above them, the first stars began to pierce the smoke. For the first time in years, the sky looked clean. Carter lay back, staring upward. Guess we just saved 2 worlds. Varkesh closed his eyes. Or created a new one. Their voices faded into the wind, and somewhere in the stillness, the reclaimer whispered one last line. Integration complete. Awaiting dawn. Silence. A silence so deep, it swallowed the world. The desert that once burned with fire now slept beneath a pale sky. No engines, no explosions, no screams. Only wind, gentle, uncertain, carrying the smell of new rain. From the shattered canyon, a faint pulse glowed under the dust. It beat slowly, like a heart learning to live again. Carter opened his eyes. Pain flooded through him, but he was alive. The world above shimmered white, as if washed clean. He sat up, coughing, his armor cracked and smoking. Every joint ached. His weapon lay half-buried beside him, useless now. Varkesh, he whispered. No answer. He looked around. The ground was covered with fragments of glass and crystal, the remains of the reclaimer's core. At the center lay a motionless shape, massive, silver-skinned, barely breathing. Carter crawled toward it. The alien's body looked different now, faint lines of blue light running across his chest like veins of energy. Hey, Carter said softly, shaking his shoulder. Come on, soldier. Don't do this now. Varkesh's eyes flickered open, glowing faintly. You live. Yeah, Carter said with a weak grin, against all logic. The alien exhaled. The reclaimer? Carter looked toward the horizon, where the Titan had stood, Only a vast glass plain remained. No machine, no armies, just stillness. "I think we stopped it," he said. Varkesh nodded slowly. "Then the cost was worth it." They sat there for a while, saying nothing. The wind moved across the desert like a whisper from the dead. Then Carter heard something strange. Voices. Human voices. He turned, scanning the ridge. A small group of soldiers approached, 3 humans and 2 Thraxians, walking side by side. Not fighting, not aiming guns, just walking. Carter blinked. "You seeing this?" Varkesh pushed himself up, leaning on a broken piece of armor. "Yes. It seems the world has forgotten who the enemy is." The group reached them cautiously. A human officer stepped forward, lowering his weapon. "Sergeant Carter?" Carter nodded warily. "That's me." The man looked stunned. "You were declared KIA 3 days ago. What happened here?" Carter smiled faintly. "Long story. Short version, we broke a god." The officer glanced at Varkesh. "And the alien?" Carter's expression hardened. "He's the reason any of us are standing here." The officer hesitated, then slowly extended his hand toward the Thraxian. Varkesh looked at it for a moment, then reached out and clasped it. That single gesture, so small, felt louder than any battle. Behind them, the sky cracked with a low rumble. Carter looked up. Not thunder, something else. A shimmering arc spread across the horizon, waves of color bending and folding like the aurora. It wasn't light, it was data. Streams of energy rising from the earth, flowing into the air, vanishing into space. Varkesh stared in awe. The merge continues. Carter frowned. "What does that mean?" "The reclaimer joined our networks, our minds. It is rewriting the connection between our species." Carter squinted at the light. "Rewriting how?" Varkesh's gaze turned distant. "It shares what we were, never willing to share. Memory, emotion, pain. It binds our histories." Carter rubbed the back of his neck. "So, both sides will start feeling what the other felt." "Yes," Varkesh said quietly. "The hate will have nowhere to hide." The humans and Thraxians around them watched in silence as the aurora brightened. Then, as if reaching a conclusion, it faded, leaving the world bathed in calm, golden light. For the first time in generations, there was no battle in the sky, only dawn. Days passed. News spread across both worlds. The energy surge had erased every weapon system for miles, both human and Thraxian fleets rendered silent. No side could fire without systems collapsing. They called it the Great Null. And somehow, everyone knew the names of the 2 who caused it. Carter and Varkesh. They were transported to a makeshift base at the edge of the neutral zone, once a war camp, now a field hospital shared by both armies. Wounded humans and aliens lay side by side, healed by the same machines. Carter limped through the corridors, nodding to faces that once would have shot him on sight. He didn't know whether to laugh or be afraid. Varkesh sat by the window, his body recovering faster than any medic could explain. Blue light still pulsed under his skin. Carter approached him. "They're calling you a hero." Varkesh didn't look up. "And you?" "They're calling me a traitor turned miracle." The alien gave a low hum that might have been a laugh. "Titles, always changing." Carter sat beside him. "You think the peace will hold?" Varkesh's eyes reflected the sunset outside. "Peace is not built in days. It is built in moments like this." He turned toward Carter. "When enemies share the same silence." Carter nodded slowly. For once, silence felt good. But deep inside, something still bothered him. He couldn't stop thinking about the Reclaimer's final words. Integration complete. Awaiting dawn. What if it wasn't done? That night he couldn't sleep. The sky outside glowed faintly, ripples of light moving like breath across the horizon. He stepped outside the tent and stared upward. The stars shimmered strangely, patterns shifting, like constellations rearranging themselves. And for a heartbeat, he heard a whisper in his mind. Carter. He froze. The voice wasn't human. It wasn't Thraxian either. It was the Reclaimer. He whispered back, I thought you were gone. I am within what you became. What does that mean? The merge is incomplete. A new balance forms. You are its anchor. Carter clenched his fists. I'm just a soldier. No longer. You carry both. The light in the sky pulsed once, then faded. The night returned to normal. Carter stood there for a long time, the wind cool against his face. Somewhere inside, he could feel a second heartbeat, steady, alien, but his. He whispered to himself, guess the story's not over. Morning came with a strange calm. When he returned inside, Varkesh was awake, watching the horizon. You heard it too, the alien said quietly. Carter nodded. It spoke to you? To both of us, Varkesh replied. It does not see two species anymore. It sees one path. Carter sighed. One path sounds good, as long as it doesn't involve more running. Varkesh smiled faintly. Perhaps the running is over. Perhaps now we learn to walk. Outside, soldiers, human and Thraxian alike, were dismantling weapons, turning tanks into shelters, and carving the word unity into the sand with steel beams. The world looked fragile, but alive. A beginning, not an ending. Carter looked toward the sunrise. Never thought I'd see peace come out of a battlefield. Varkesh followed his gaze. Peace is not born of victory, human. It is born of exhaustion. And hope. Carter chuckled softly. You sound like an old philosopher. The alien tilted his head. And you sound like someone who finally understands. They stood together as the light rose over the horizon, painting the desert gold. For a moment, everything was still. Then, far above, one of the human ships shimmered back to life. Its systems, once dead, flickered, powered by the same strange blue energy that now lived within them. Varkesh watched it climb higher into the sky. The Reclaimer gave us its gift, he said. Carter nodded slowly. Then we better not waste it. He turned to the alien. So what now, partner? Varkesh's eyes glowed softly. Now, we teach both sides what we learned. And what's that? That mercy, the alien said, is the strongest weapon ever forged. Carter smiled. Guess that makes us both armed to the teeth. They started walking, two figures crossing the endless plain, side by side. Behind them, the neutral zone shimmered with light, breathing like a living thing. Ahead of them, a new world waited, and in the wind, faint but clear, came the echo of the Reclaimer's voice. Balance restored. For now. Carter glanced up. Yeah, he murmured. For now. The sky brightened, and the story of the human who refused to walk away, and the alien no one would save, became legend. A tale told in every campfire, every city, every world that once knew war. The tale of how one act of defiance rewrote the fate of two species. Would you like me to now outline or begin a Season 2 continuation, where the merged human-Thraxian world starts to fracture again under strange new forces, hinting that the Reclaimer might still be alive inside their minds?